You've heard the warnings your entire life, from fitness magazines stacked in waiting rooms, from coaches who coached coaches, from well-meaning friends who swear by their pre-workout rituals. Eat before you move. Fuel the machine. Without food, your body will turn on itself. You'll bonk, you'll crash, your muscles will cannibalize themselves in desperation, and you'll crawl back inside having done more damage than good. These warnings have followed you for years, and yet this morning, something different happens. Maybe it's quiet curiosity. Maybe it's a mild rebellion against rules you never truly questioned. Maybe you simply don't feel like eating yet and decide for the first time to just see what happens. You lace up the shoes, you step outside into the cool stillness of the morning, or you walk into your gym, or you head to the park, and within minutes, something begins to shift that you were never warned about and never expected.
Instead of your legs turning to concrete and your vision swimming at the edges, you feel something almost electric begin to move through you. Your mind, which moments ago was wrapped in that familiar morning fog, starts to sharpen. Your body feels strangely light, unburdened, almost weightless. Your breathing finds its rhythm with surprising ease. Your movements feel clean and fluid in a way you can't immediately explain. You've just stumbled onto something that modern nutrition culture has spent decades trying to convince you doesn't exist. You've tapped into a survival mechanism so ancient, so deeply encoded into your biology that it predates agriculture, predates civilization, predates the concept of breakfast itself. And to truly understand what's happening inside you in this moment, we need to start by dismantling one of the most stubborn myths in the entire fitness world. Most people carry a quiet assumption that the food they eat 30 minutes before a workout is what directly powers their muscles during that session. The banana on the way out the door, the protein shake blended at 6 in the morning, the handful of almonds grabbed as an afterthought. The belief is that this food travels quickly into your bloodstream and gets converted into the energy you feel during your run or your lift. It sounds logical, it feels intuitive, and it is almost entirely wrong.
Digestion isn't a rapid process. It is slow, complex, and remarkably sequential. That banana you just ate is still sitting in your stomach, being broken down by acid and enzymes, while you're already halfway through mile 2, already sweating, already breathing hard. The nutrients from that food haven't entered your bloodstream yet. They certainly haven't reached your muscles. So if that pre-workout snack isn't powering you, what is? The real energy your muscles are using right now comes from internal reserves your body has been quietly maintaining for exactly these moments. It comes from glycogen, stored carbohydrate held in your liver and muscle tissue, ready to be deployed within seconds of demand. And it comes from the vast, largely untapped reservoir of energy locked inside your body fat. Even a relatively lean person carries enough stored fat energy to fuel dozens of hours of continuous movement without consuming a single calorie. Fasted exercise isn't about depriving your body of energy. It's about teaching your body how to unlock the energy it already has. When you begin exercising in a fasted state for the first time, your body enters what can only be described as a period of metabolic recalibration. Think of it as a system reboot. Because if you've spent years fueling before every workout, your metabolism has settled into deeply habitual patterns. It expects glucose. It waits for it. It's been operating in an environment of high insulin, that hormone released every time you eat, which acts as a continuous signal telling your cells that fuel is abundant and fat burning can be deferred indefinitely.
In a fasted state, that signal disappears. Insulin drops to its lowest point in the past 24 hours. And that low insulin environment is the biological green light your body has been waiting for. The signal that finally gives permission for fatty acids to be released from your fat stores and sent into circulation as fuel. The problem in the beginning is that your cellular machinery hasn't yet been optimized for this kind of fuel. It's rusty.
Like an engine that runs on one type of fuel being asked to switch to another, there's an adjustment period. Those first few fasted workouts may feel sluggish. Your legs might feel heavier than usual. Your focus might waver. A subtle brain fog might make those difficult moments in your workout feel harder to push through. But underneath that temporary discomfort, something extraordinary is already being set in motion. Studies published in the Journal of Physiology show that during these initial sessions, your body is being forced to upgrade its fat-burning enzymes, the molecular machinery responsible for extracting energy from fatty acids. Your cells are not passively burning calories. They are being structurally rewired to handle a new metabolic reality, one where peak performance doesn't require a recent meal. By the end of the first week, something noticeably shifts. The heaviness begins to fade. The brain fog lifts, energy levels start to stabilize, and for many people actually improve beyond what they experienced training in a fed state. This is the moment when your hormonal landscape begins its most dramatic transformation.
One of the most significant changes happening inside you is a powerful surge in growth hormone. Not a modest uptick, but a dramatic elevation. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation found that the combination of fasting and exercise can increase growth hormone production by several times its normal baseline, sometimes reaching 5 or 6 times the standard rate. This surge exists for a precise biological reason. Your body is deploying growth hormone as a protective signal, essentially placing your muscle tissue and bone density under guard while it redirects its energy-gathering efforts toward burning fat. Growth hormone tells your body with unmistakable clarity that these tissues are not available as fuel, no matter how scarce food appears to be. Simultaneously, your cells are undergoing a quieter but equally important transformation. They are becoming extraordinarily sensitive to insulin. Not in a way that creates problems, but in a way that fundamentally improves how your body handles the food you eat after your workout. When you finally break your fast and consume that post-exercise meal, something remarkable happens to those incoming calories. Instead of spilling over into fat storage, your body directs them with precision toward muscle repair, toward replenishing glycogen stores, toward rebuilding the tissues you just challenged. You are becoming, in the language of metabolic researchers, metabolically flexible. Your body is developing the ability to transition seamlessly between burning sugar and burning fat, to shift between fuel sources based on what's available, rather than getting locked into one mode and struggling whenever circumstances change.
Metabolic flexibility is increasingly recognized as one of the most meaningful indicators of long-term health, more predictive of future wellness than body weight, more important than many of the conventional metrics we've been trained to monitor. Move forward to the end of your first month of consistent fasted exercise, and the changes become structural rather than temporary. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Nutrition, drawing on dozens of individual studies, found that exercising in a fasted state can increase fat oxidation, the rate at which your body burns fat for fuel, by 20 to 30% compared to exercising after eating. That is not a minor statistical footnote. That is a fundamental shift in how your metabolism operates at rest and during movement. But here is where the story takes a turn that surprises almost everyone. Because the most profound changes happening through this practice are not occurring in your muscles or your fat tissue. They are occurring in your brain.
When blood sugar is low and stable, when your liver begins producing ketones from the breakdown of fat, your brain receives a different kind of fuel. Ketones are remarkably efficient molecules. They generate more ATP, the cellular currency of energy, per unit of oxygen consumed compared to glucose. They produce less oxidative stress as a byproduct of that energy production. They burn, in a very real sense, cleaner. And beyond the fuel itself, the mild controlled stress of fasted movement triggers the release of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. This protein supports the repair of existing neurons, encourages the growth of new neural connections, and plays a meaningful role in mood stability and emotional resilience. It is, in the most literal sense, a growth signal for your brain.
This explains a phenomenon that becomes almost universally reported among people who adapt to fasted exercise. They describe a quality of mental clarity during those morning sessions that feels different from any other time of day. Thoughts arrive with unusual sharpness. Complex problems feel more tractable. The kind of focused, absorbed mental state that psychologists call flow becomes easier to access, almost reliably so. You are not just training your cardiovascular system and your muscles. You are actively participating in the maintenance and enhancement of your own cognitive hardware.
After 3 months of consistent practice, the adaptations cease to be functional and become structural. Your mitochondria, the organelles inside your cells responsible for producing the vast majority of your cellular energy, have become more numerous and dramatically more efficient through a process called mitochondrial biogenesis. You can now generate more energy with less metabolic waste, with less oxidative stress, with greater overall output. The engine hasn't just been tuned, it has been rebuilt. Long-term research highlighted by Dr. Mark Mattson in the New England Journal of Medicine points to another benefit that rarely gets discussed with the attention it deserves. People who regularly practice fasted exercise show measurable reductions in chronic inflammation markers, specifically proteins like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, both of which are strongly associated with accelerated aging, elevated disease risk, and metabolic dysfunction. Lower levels of these markers translate into reduced risk for chronic disease, faster recovery from physical stress, improved immune function, and compounding health returns that accumulate quietly over years. For the overwhelming majority of human history, for something close to 99% of the time our species has walked this planet, physical effort and an empty stomach were not separate experiences. They were the same experience. Our ancestors did not consume a balanced meal before engaging in physical activity. They engaged in physical activity in order to obtain a meal. They hunted, they tracked, they gathered. They covered enormous distances on foot through varied terrain, carrying weight, solving problems, navigating challenges, all of it happening in a state of metabolic depletion, not metabolic abundance. What this means from an evolutionary perspective is profound and clarifying. The humans whose genes we carry today, the survivors across hundreds of thousands of years of human prehistory, were the ones whose bodies performed at their best precisely when food was scarce, whose minds sharpened when hungry rather than dulling, whose muscles moved with power and efficiency even when the last meal was many hours or even days behind them. Because the alternative was not performing suboptimally. The alternative was not surviving long enough to reproduce. We are, at the deepest biological level, designed to be at our most capable in a hungry state. Modern life has inverted this completely. We have built an environment of perpetual food availability that has no precedent in human history, and our bodies, which were shaped by long periods of feast and famine cycling, are struggling to adapt to the unrelenting feast. Fasted exercise doesn't reject modernity. It selectively reconnects us with biological patterns our bodies still recognize and respond to with remarkable power. Now, balance matters here, and it would be dishonest to present this practice without its full context. Fasted exercise is a tool, a powerful one, but it is not universally superior in every application or appropriate for every individual. For genuinely high-intensity efforts, maximal sprints, near-maximal strength training, explosive interval work, research does document a potential 10 to 15% reduction in peak power output when muscle glycogen is depleted and blood glucose is low. If your primary goal is setting a personal performance record, if fractions of a second or single percentage improvements in power output are what you're measuring, some carbohydrate before that specific session may serve you better. But for the moderate intensity activities that constitute the vast majority of what most people actually do, steady cardio, recreational training, general fitness work, submaximal strength sessions, Fasted exercise works beautifully once adaptation is complete and often feels measurably better than training in a fed state. There are also specific circumstances where extra caution is essential. Pregnancy and breastfeeding both create metabolic demands that make fasting inappropriate. Anyone with a history of disordered eating should approach this practice carefully, if at all, given the psychological complexity that can arise at the intersection of food restriction and exercise. Women with already low body fat or high overall stress loads may find that excessive fasted exercise elevates cortisol to levels that begin interfering with reproductive hormones, manifesting as menstrual irregularities or hormonal disruption. The threshold where benefit becomes stress is real, and it varies considerably between individuals. For people managing type 1 diabetes, the unpredictable blood sugar dynamics created by fasted exercise make it genuinely dangerous without direct medical supervision and a clear glucose management protocol in place.
If you want to begin exploring this approach, start conservatively. A 30-minute brisk walk, an easy cycle, gentle movement that keeps you in what exercise physiologists call Zone 2, a heart rate range where fat oxidation is at its natural peak and the metabolic stress remains productive rather than excessive. Drink water before and during your session, and consider adding a pinch of quality sea salt or a sugar-free electrolyte mix, because fasting lowers insulin, which causes the kidneys to excrete more sodium than usual, making dehydration arrive faster than you might expect. When you finish, wait. Give yourself 30 to 60 minutes before eating. This extended fasting window after exercise allows fat oxidation to remain elevated, allows growth hormone to stay high a little longer, allows autophagy to continue its cellular maintenance work. When you do finally eat, break your fast with a meal anchored in quality protein to support muscle repair, with healthy fats and eventually carbohydrates to restore glycogen. You are creating a deliberate rhythm of stress and recovery, challenge and nourishment, depletion and rebuilding. Each cycle makes you slightly more resilient than the one before.
This is not punishment. It isn't deprivation theater or a test of how much discomfort you can tolerate. It is biological maintenance. It is giving your cells the conditions they need to clean house, upgrade their machinery, and remember capabilities that constant eating has quietly suppressed. You are sending your body a message at the deepest level it knows how to receive, a message that says an empty stomach is not an emergency, that hunger is not a crisis requiring immediate intervention, that everything needed to move, to think, to perform with clarity and strength is already present, already stored, already waiting to be accessed. You aren't just burning fat during these fasted workouts, though that certainly happens. You are building a more resilient metabolism. You are developing insulin sensitivity that will protect you for decades. You are generating mitochondria that will serve your energy production for years. You are triggering autophagy that keeps your cellular environment clean and functional. You are cultivating the kind of metabolic flexibility that frees you from rigid meal timing, from energy crashes, from the constant dependency on external fuel just to feel normal. These are not temporary effects. They are structural changes to how your biology operates, and they compound quietly over time in ways that show up not just in your workouts, but in the quality of your focus, the stability of your mood, the consistency of your energy across an entire day, the long, slow trajectory of your health across an entire life.
So the question isn't whether the science supports this. It does, consistently, across multiple disciplines and decades of research. The question is simply whether you're willing to test it against your own experience. Not forever, not as a complete lifestyle overhaul. Just once, tomorrow morning, before breakfast, a 20-minute walk. Notice your mind. Notice your body. Notice whether what the science predicts matches what you actually feel.